Hi, Grandma here, and I'm reading The Apprentice, Chapter 9. The maestro silently contemplated the finished sketch that Donato held out in front of him. A few tears slid from his eyes, though whether they were tears of emotion or simply caused by the effort of looking was not clear. Finally, with a trembling gesture, he sighed and said, "This work is worthy of my studio." Donato looked at me with satisfaction. "You must take it to the Duke's palace," the maestro continued in an exhausted voice. "I told him I would deliver it, but then he realized how ill I am, and that would lead him to doubt that I can carry out this commission. The word would spread, and I'd soon be out of work. He must not know that I am ill, nor must he know that the art is not my own." "He won't find out," said Donato, looking down. I knew that he was reluctant to lie to the Duke, but it seemed the only choice. "Melania!" croaked the maestro. "Where does that woman get to?" The servant arrived, shaking flour from her wrinkled woolen skirt. "Whether ill or well, the man does nothing but insult and interrupt me," she growled. "Curses!" "Stop moaning and listen. Have the boys hitch the horse to the cart and wrap this sketch in cloth." Melania looked at the drawing that Donato and I held against the bed. "You are a true artist, Donato," she said softly. Come along," barked the maestro. "You're wasting time." Before Melania could disappear down the hallway, he added, "And get some clean clothes out for Donato and Marco. They must make a good impression." "I'm taking Arduino with me." Donato's steady voice surprised me. He wanted me for his assistant. Though I was his friend, I was still the newest and least experienced. "No, Marco should be the one to go with you. He's the one that knows," began Cosimo. "I'm taking Arduino with me," Donato repeated. Cosimo shrugged his shoulders and buried himself in the pillows and covers. Donato signaled to me, and we left the room, carrying the large sketch between us. "Pay my respects to the Duke," said the maestro from under his blankets. The brilliant marble entrance in the Duke's palace was flooded with lights. We sat waiting on a soft blue velvet bench. Donato, who was dressed in black and seemed even thinner and paler because of it, was examining the perfectly proportioned arches that surrounded the room. The vastness of the hall made me feel as insecure as a chick out of its nest. At the same time, I was thrilled to be exactly where I was. A boy wearing tight-fitting hose entered the room and announced the Duke, who strode in behind him. He was wearing a fur-lined robe. This one I didn't recognize as my father's work. "Well," he answered in an indifferent tone. Donato spoke. "My maestro, Cosimo di Forli, sends you his respects, sir. On his behalf, we are here to present you with a sketch, which you were good enough to commission him to create." The Duke looked at Donato with interest now. "Where is the maestro?" he asked, surprised. "Oh, my maestro is old, and the winter has been a hard one, my lord. Pray forgive us and accept us as his ambassadors." "Show me the sketch." We uncovered the drawing and placed it in the light. The Duke looked at it for some time. "It's brilliant," he said, "just as are all the works of Cosimo di Forli's hand." He looked up at Donato. "Tell your maestro I am most eager to see my chapel decorated in this marvelous theme, so beautifully realized by his art." He then snapped his fingers, and the secretary, who must have been standing just outside the door, entered the room. The Duke spoke to him, and the secretary left. He returned a moment later with a suede pouch tied with a silken cord. The Duke took it, held it for a moment as if weighing it. "Give this to the maestro," he said, handing the bag to Donato. "These coins are the second part of the payment, as we agreed." Oh, Donato bowed. "Thank you, my lord." "What is your name?" asked the Duke curiously. "Donato, sir. And have you been with Cosimo a long time?" Donato smiled and answered, "An eternity, my lord." I had never been as happy as I was during the days that followed working in the palace chapel. I loved all the jobs I was asked to carry out, climbing the scaffolding, preparing and smoothing the wall, studying the proportions of the original drawing and the panel, mixing the colors, scaling the drawings, tracing, perforating. Nothing bored me. Donato had organized the work so that I would participate in all of the steps. The others helped too. Marco listened grudgingly to Donato's instructions, though Baldo and Piero obeyed the young maestro's orders without complaining. Baldo's attention was often on the windows through which he could see the cartload of provisions, sometimes exotic fruits and vegetables that arrived daily at the palace. I was fascinated and intimidated by the complicated technique of fresco painting, but Donato's patient instruction helped increase my confidence. The plaster must be fresh when the colors are applied. Green, violet, azure, wheat matched all the colors to the feathers of the birds the Duke collected and kept in an enormous aviary on the palace grounds. If the plaster is dry, the paint will not take properly and will fall off its scales. The fat little terracotta cherubs near the altar laughed silently as the fawns carved on the end of the pews. You can't retouch the paint once it is dried either. It would look like a patch and be very obvious. I have a picture to show you of Donato working on the fresco. Each day, just before sundown, we finished up what we were working on and prepared to return to the studio. Usually the 5 of us left at the same time. On one particular afternoon, however, the Duke was coming to the chapel to check on the progress of the fresco, and Donato was to stay late. "Stay with me, Arduino," Donato had said, and I had agreed. Hearing this, Marco left, slamming the chapel door behind him. Piero and Baldo had already gone back to the maestro. While we waited, Donato and I chatted about the next day's work. Finally, the Duke arrived along with his daughter, Bianca, the betrothed. Again, the Duke asked where the maestro was, and again, Donato made an excuse for him. Bianca looked like a child with curly auburn hair braided with pearls. She glanced around with sad blue eyes. "The maestro is a good teacher," the Duke commented. "His apprentice here is able to follow his style exactly, though he seems to add something of his own to the work." Donato looked down modestly. "Tell me, Donato, will it be finished in time?" "Yes, my lord. As you can see, the most complicated part, preparing the full-size drawings, is finished. The painting is proceeding at a regular pace, day by day." He took the Duke to the table with stacks of drawings, leaving me standing alone with Bianca. "It will be a beautiful painting," Bianca said in a soft voice. "It must be wonderful to devote your life to art." "You appreciate art, my lady," I said nervously. "We are very lucky to be working for you." "Luck was yours at birth," she said pensively. "I beg your pardon?" She sat down on a bench. Her dress of golden taffeta rustled around her. "You are a man. You can choose what you like. You can decide your life and your destiny. That's why you are lucky." "Well, it's not easy to choose or to decide, my lady. One must fight and suffer to reach one's dreams." "Well, you can at least choose." Her voice was so sad that it seemed night fell more rapidly. "You are a wealthy young lady," I said, feebly trying to cheer her. "You lack for nothing and are safe from hunger and cold and fear. Your life is peaceful." During some minutes, the only sound in the chapel was that the sheets of paper Donato was unfolding before the Duke. "My destiny from the day I was born was marriage and motherhood," she said. "Even the choice of a husband was made for me. If I had the chance, I would like to be an artist and work in a studio with a great maestro like yours and paint the things that are felt in my heart. I wish I could paint feelings." "Paint feelings?" "Yes," she said, smiling. "Joy, pain, boredom, love, anger. But I'm only a woman. I can only obey and dream. But come along, Bianca, interrupted the Duke. It's getting late. The girl stood up, nodded to me, and left the chapel, leaving only the sound of her dainty slippers behind her. Donato and I returned to the house together. He was in high spirits from the Duke's favorable opinion of his work. I was so absorbed by the memory of my conversation with the Duke's daughter that I didn't notice anything strange until I went to the studio to drop off some drawings. When Marco saw me, he scurried out of the room. Baldo, who was cleaning brushes, looked at me, rolled his eyes, and made a sound, his forefinger moving across his neck. "What's wrong?" I asked him. "Arduino!" The maestro's voice echoed through the house. Yes, I called back, startled. "Arduino!" he repeated, and my temples began to pound. I ran to his room, stood in front of the bed. He was sitting up, half-dressed, his eyes red with fury. "Yes, Maestro," I said. "Maestro," he yelled. "I'm not your maestro, and I never will be. I have had rude, stupid boys in my studio, but you're the worst of all." "What have I done?" I asked. I was bewildered by this outburst. "You have the nerve to ask me? Of course, I'd forgotten. You are Arduino di Emilio di Antonio Neri, Prince of Traitors." My legs were shaking. I would have fallen to the floor if Melania's calloused hand hadn't held me up. "Come along, let's go," she said. "But what have I done?" I repeated louder. No one would answer me. I sat on the kitchen hearth next to the fire, going over everything that had happened during the day, but I couldn't think of anything that would have brought on the maestro's fit of rage. "Baldo," I called, and when I saw my companion tiptoe by the kitchen, "Baldo." "Shh," he said. He came in, took some nuts from a basket on the table. "Baldo, tell me what happened. I don't understand what's going on." "I can't tell you." "Why not?" Baldo shrugged, tried to crack one of the nuts with his teeth. "Where's Donato?" Baldo shrugged again and ran out of the kitchen. Melania came in, looked at me, shook her head. "Where's Donato?" I asked her. "The maestro sent him on an errand." "Donato? Why not Marco or Piero?" Just then I heard the heavy knocker strike the front door. I ran down the hallway, hoping it was Donato. I pulled hard on the handle and the door swung open. There on the doorstep was my father. I was stunned. He stepped into the house and without a word, put both his hands on my shoulders, looked into my eyes. His expression gave me a terrible sinking feeling. Piero, who had apparently accompanied him, vanished like smoke behind the curtain. "Is that you, Maestro Emilio?" shouted the maestro from his room. "Yes, it is," my father replied, turning to follow Cosimo's voice to the bedroom. "Come," he said to me, and I quietly walked behind. As soon as the maestro saw my father, he started ranting. "You remember the instructions you gave me when we formalized the contract of your son's apprenticeship? If at any time the boy misbehaves or does not do his work, send for me. Are they not more or less your words?" "Yes," my father answered. "Well, that is what I have done. Your son is the most disgraceful traitor that I have ever known. Take him out of my sight, Melania." The servant came into the bedchambers carrying my old satchel, which she laid at my father's feet. "What has Arduino done?" he asked in a severe voice. "Ask him yourself." My father looked at me. His eyes tore me apart. "Well, what have you done?" he asked angrily. "Nothing, Father." "Nothing? What do you mean, nothing? Is this some kind of joke?" His voice boomed and he turned to the maestro again. "I demand an explanation immediately." The maestro relaxed against the cushions, seeming to enjoy the scene, and explained. "Your son, Maestro Emilio, betrayed the confidence that I placed in him. Against my specific instructions, he revealed to the Duke of Algora, my client, that I was ill and that the commissioned work in his chapel was not my own. He paused and then went on, ignoring my surprised look. He's jeopardized not only the commission, but the future of this studio. When word gets out, no one will ever come to me again for work. I'll be ruined. My father turned to me for an explanation, but I was in shock. All I could say was, "It isn't true." The maestro swung his legs out from the blankets and tried to stand. His face was red, and 2 veins stood out at his temple. "Do you see? Now he's calling me a liar. Take him away from the house. I'll see to it he never apprentices anywhere again. He doesn't deserve to learn to paint. He should spend the rest of his life cleaning stables." "Oh, I understand your anger at his disobedience, maestro," said my father calmly, "but it seems to me you're angry at having been discovered for what you are, a cheat. You have misrepresented yourself and have coerced these boys into lying for you. I don't condone what Arduino has done if in fact he is guilty, but what you've done is equally contemptible. Come along, Arduino." My father picked up my bundle of things, pulling me by the arm, led me out into the street. Wow. Wonder how Maestro got that idea. I saw no evidence that Arduino had betrayed his confidence. Did you? Well, hopefully it all gets figured out next chapter. See you later. Bye-bye.